Namaste everybody, Irina here. Welcome to this channel and thank you for joining me in my yoga practice. I invite you to take a cross-legged seated position. We will start the practice very shortly. So in this video I will be focusing on the hip area within the physical body. So we will be working with hip complex and the muscles that are associated with the hip complex. So this is your hip flexors, hip rotators, adductors. Hip joints are very mobile joints. It's a ball and socket type of joint. So please pay attention to the sensations in the hips, and especially those strong electric-like sensations, because we want to avoid anything that feels as a pain in the joint rather than perhaps a dull sensation in the connective tissue. I also encourage you to pay attention to your knees, because as soon as we start working on the hips, externally rotate, or we're going into the flexion, so the knees will follow. So please do be careful with the knee joints as well. And from the spiritual point of view and from the pranic point of view, we're going to be working on the second chakra, Svadhisthana, and this is the home of our emotions. The element is water, so I invite you to think about this practice as like water running through the stones, the cavities, so very fluid movement, soft. So we're gonna start in the child's pose. For this practice, I'm gonna be using the blocks. If you do have them, please prepare before you start. And I'm also gonna use a blanket just to protect my knees. And have it handy if you do also need to protect your joints. So starting from Balasana, the child's pose, you can have your options and modifications in that pose. So you can take your knees quite wide, so already opening up your knees, and then perhaps bringing your chest to the floor, bringing the forehead to the floor. You can extend the arms forward and just notice sensations in the upper body. If you're finding that your shoulders feel too tight, maybe you need to take your arms slightly wider. If your sensations are too strong at this moment because the body is cold, so we haven't warmed up the body yet, so maybe closing the knees. You may want to use the blocks to position your forehead and bringing the arms alongside. That's another option for Balasana. But whatever you do, find the variation that suits you. So I'll be going into the wide spread with my legs, bringing the arms forward and just releasing the weight of the body into the mat. So trying not to hold the tension and just noticing the groin area. Perhaps start feeling that there is a mild sensations that are occurring in the body. Are you holding to tension subconsciously? Are you feeling that the body is active, especially the upper body, and maybe allowing to soften? Shoulders relaxed. And your breaths becoming deeper, your inhalation and exhalations. Notice your surrounding noises, sounds, or perhaps notice the stillness and the quietness of your environment where you're in. On the inhale, feel the abdomen expanding, the belly rises, and on the exhale, allowing the belly to drop towards the spine. And from here, peel the forehead off the floor. We're gonna bring the hands into the floor and we're gonna square the hips. We're gonna press back into Balasana, but this time we're gonna create the dynamic. So we're gonna arch through the back. And then we're gonna round through the back and look at the navel. So you're bringing your buttocks towards the heels and then brushing the tip of the nose over the mat and rounding through the back and looking at the navel. Remember that fluid motion, that water element, bringing that element into your practice. Inhaling, we are arching, and on the exhale, we are rounding. If you want to use your ankles and have that movement, or you can have your ankles flexed, could be extended, whatever works for you. And let's get into the all four, your neutral position. We're gonna tuck the toes, we're gonna lift the knees, pedal through the feet. So we're not coming into the down dog just yet. We're just starting to test the water. So you are bringing your weight into your hands, you're noticing the sensations in the hands, and then dropping your knees and maybe sitting onto the, so you're bringing your toes, you're tucking in your toes and maybe just sitting with on your ankles here. And let's bring the movement into the shoulders. So we're rounding. So making the circular movements. And perhaps if that's too much, you want to extend your ankles, because that pressure on the toes could be quite unbearable, could be quite a lot for some of you. Okay, let's bring the hands towards the floor. Let's tuck the toes, lift the knees. We're gonna lift the right leg and we're gonna look forward and we're gonna step forward and we're gonna drop the knee to the floor. And here we're gonna come up and gently press. So I start using the blanket to ensure that my knees are supported. That I've got extra cushioning. And maybe just pressing forward so you're sinking with your hips slightly forward, and your hands could be on your right thigh. Notice your sensations in the ankle, because one of the options could be to use the block under the shins here. So it means that you're not putting so much weight into the ankle, and also your kneecap could be in the air, but the shin is supported by the block. Just noticing, trying, works for you, doesn't work for you. Let's tuck the toes, let's plant the hands. We're gonna pivot and rotate towards the other side. Whatever worked for you on the right side, let's do the same on the left. So at this point, you're tilting with your pelvis and sinking forward. So we've got an extension of your right hip, flexion of the left, And then gently pressing with your hands into the mat. Sorry, into the thigh. Maybe sinking forward. And at this point, because the back knee is supported, we're not that bothered about going with the knee over the ankle. If you have your knee lifted off the floor and it's a high lunge rather than the low lunge, then yes, being careful not to go over and not to put too much pressure on the kneecap. Okay, if your toes weren't tucked in, tuck it in, plant your hands, lift the knee and walk towards the right side, step forward. Inhale, halfway left. Exhale, fold, round through the back. Perhaps you can grab your ankles, or maybe you're gonna want just to drop the weight of the body forward, your arms to be soft and hands to be resting on the floor. And having few breaths here. Noticing if maybe the body wants to sway to the sides, or maybe just invite those movements into the body. Plant your hands, inhale, halfway left, round through the back, step back with your right foot, bring the knee to the floor. We're gonna inhale and we're gonna go into Anjaneyasana, look up, stretch through the throat, plant your hands, exhale into the down dog. Drop your knees, hold your breath, drag the chest, the chin, and lift into cobra. Tug the toes into the down dog. Right foot forward, knee to the floor. Inhale, Anjaneyasana. Plant your hands, step forward. Exhale here, inhale, halfway left. Exhale, fold, step back with your left foot. Knee to the floor. Inhale, look up. Plant your hands. Exhale, down dog. Drop the knees. Whilst you're dragging the chest, the chin, keep your elbows close to the body. And then extend your ankles so you're pressing the mat away, keeping your body framed with the elbows, looking up, active legs, glutes engaged, tug the toes, down dog. Left foot forward, right knee to the floor. Inhale, arch, look up, plant your hands, step forward, exhale, round through the back. Inhale, halfway left. Exhale, fold, separate your feet with hip apart and position your hands under the feet. Inhale, lengthen through the spine. On the exhale, maybe trying to hinge slightly forward from the hips. So bringing your chest closer to the thighs and trying to keep that length in the spine. Maybe bringing your body weight slightly forward. Elbows are rotating to the sides. And deep breath. Okay, release your hands. Inhale, halfway left. Exhale, fold. Plant your hands, step into down dog. Knees, chest, chin, cobra or baby cobra. So if you're opting out for baby cobra, it means that the chest is lifted off the floor, but it's not as extensive back bend as the cobra. Tug the toes, Down dog. Let's stay 5 breaths in Adho Mukha Svanasana. Start feeling the heat in the body, that warmth spreading through the whole body. Lift the right leg, look forward, step forward. Okay, starting from your low lunge. Remember, protect the knee if necessary. And here you can also use your bricks or the blocks if you want to sink slightly forward. You'll feel those sensation and extension on your left hip. You'll feel flexion of your right. And here those blocks can you just help you to keep your chest active, keep your shoulders retracted. And breathing. Okay, release your blocks. Let's plant the hands. We're going to lift the back knee off the floor and we're going to rotate it out. So shift your right hand inside your right foot and we're going to open up and come into Utthita Parshvakonasana. Again, if you're finding that sometimes what I see is that people are twisting. So if you do find that you need to use that block, the brick, the longer or the shorter edge, then use it. We want to keep engaging with the back leg. So the foot is gripping into the mat, kneecap is elevated, and we're rotating the chest out. Exhale, look down, release your block, square yourself, come back into Anjaneyasana, your low lunge, lift both of the arms off the floor, right hand into the right hip, and here come into the twist. So your left arm is positioned onto the thigh, and we're trying to bring the hands closer to the sternum. And here, if you're finding that that's too much, maybe even having a gentle twist. Maybe you need to have a support and then maybe twisting. Whatever your circumstances are with the body, like your condition, your range of motion, respect it. And remember, with yoga, less is more. And back into the center, plant your hands, lift the back knee off the floor, pivot to the left side. Anjaneyasana, starting from the low lunge, sink forward. If you need to use your bricks, position them beside you, or perhaps having your hands on the floor. Another option is to sink slightly forward and have with the chest and have your fingertips pressing into the mat. Again, whatever your preference, whatever your alteration for Anjaneyasana is. Plant your hands, tug the toes of your back foot, lift the knee, rotate the right foot out, bring arch to the heel, maybe shifting your left leg slightly to the center, bringing the left arm inside of your foot, and then opening up. And again, remember, the blocks or the bricks is always an option to use it. So if you're compromising your openness and lengthening of the side body and you're twisted here and rounding, then obviously, yes, use something. Maybe even coming into the elbow here and then having side angle pose, lift it. Twist in the neck, Exhale, look down. Start, rotate your hips into the Anjaneyasana. Plant your knee onto the floor, back into the low lunge. So the twist towards the left side, your arm, right arm goes forward, twist, plant your hands, and here perhaps lifting the back knee off the floor or staying. Again, less is more. So if you maybe need to adjust and have just a slight twist in that waist. Shoulders away from the ears, we're looking over the left shoulder. Okay, release the pose, square yourself, plant your hands, lift the back knee off the floor, pivot, and stop midway here. Rotate your toes slightly in and maybe taking your legs even wider. So you here, it might be that you're already in hinging position from your hips, but for some of you, you may need to use the bricks or the blocks. So the fold comes not from rounding the upper body, but the fold comes from the hips. Your knees could be soft to release the hamstrings, and then perhaps bringing the elbows to the floor or to the bricks or anything that you can stack up. That could be books, a couple of books if you want to use them, or bringing the elbows into the floor and having a few breaths here. Breathe into the groin. Notice the sensation in your adductors. Notice the sensation in the thighs, the front of the thighs, the back of the thighs. And keep breathing. Inhale. Let's do a halfway lift. Extend your arms forward. And here, rotate towards the right side. Plant your hands. Step into Adho Mukha Svanasana. Drop the knees. Drag the chest, the chin. Bhujangasana. Inhale, look up. Tuck the toes into the down dog. Right leg up. And then let's bring that right leg forward, and we're gonna drop the shin to the floor. We're gonna extend with the back ankle, and here again, so gauge how far, what is the distance between your right buttocks and the floor. It might be that you need to position something underneath. It could be a block, the brick, maybe supporting yourself with a towel. And again, position of your shin. Well, the shin can be away from the groin, but again, gauge your sensations in the knees. So we shouldn't be feeling acute pain here. Yes, I could feel the dull sensation in the buttocks, in the hip on the right side, but there is nothing that indicates that I've got some acute pain, a joint pain. Tips of the fingers pressing into the mat. Roll your shoulders back and create a gentle arch in the back and stretch through the throat and arching in the neck. Few breaths here. Try to release the weight of the body. Sink and melt. And then we're going to transition into the sleeping pigeon, which is the weight of the body now is pressing forward, so we don't keep the upper body active. We're relaxing that passive stretch to occur. Trying not to hold your tension in the shoulders, allow them to be soft and allow the body just to melt, and notice
those sensations in the right buttocks, in the right thigh, the back of the thigh, the front of the thigh. And perhaps just breathing into that space. I'm going to lift the forehead off the floor, plant your hands, and from here we're going to kick back. So you need to gather your strength and tug the toes. So prepare, we want to connect to the core. We're going to lift and then open up and outside rotate your right hip. And perhaps you can sense some energy, some rush of the blood into that area, and then drop the foot to the floor, lift the opposite, and we're gonna bring it forward. Again, making sure, so if you want to shift your ankle slightly away, but as soon as I do that shift, I tend to twist, and it's really important to not to twist in this pose. So we want our hips to be squared. I'm not twisting to the side with the torso. I'm bringing the chest back into the center. With the tips of the fingers, I'm pressing into the mat, maybe encouraging very gentle back bend. If your shoulders are very tense and glued to the ears, maybe trying to bring them slightly down, away from the ears. And from here, let's get into the sleeping pigeon. So creating a pillow with your hands. For some of you, it may be that you would need to brick to position. Sometimes you may want to create, so bringing your elbows and hugging your elbows here, and maybe positioning your forehead on that shelf that you've just created with your arms. Whatever works for you. Remember to soften through the upper body, so we don't want to hold the tension. So when we're going into the standard pigeon, there is an activity of the upper body, which is achieved by pressing into the fingertips into the mat and pressing the mat away. Here it's the opposite. We want to melt the weight of the body forward and to allow that to work on the hip, and opening your hips. On the left side. Peel the forehead off the floor and prepare for that kick back into the three-legged dog. Maybe you need to adjust your position on the mat. Spread your fingers, tug the toes, lift, and open up, your knees bent, and we're opening and outside rotating, looking under the left underarm. Bring the foot to the floor. We're going to bring the knees towards the floor and release them to the sides. Transition into laying on your back. And from here, we're going to go into the happy baby. So the happy baby here is, there is a, well, I think there is a different interpretation what a happy baby is. For some of you, you may want to really open up your legs here, and with your middle and index fingers just keep holding off your big toes. It could be maybe spreading and releasing one leg at a time. For some of you, it may be grabbing your shins and opening up your hips here. And if you want that movement into the body, invite that movement. And ultimately, if you maybe want stillness and bring the gravity into play here. Maybe pressing into the shins. Trying to keep your lower back on the floor. And then bringing the knees together, dropping your feet to the floor, bringing your arms to the sides, and start doing the windscreen with your knees. So we are rotating and moving the knees to each side of the body. As soon as your knees flops into the right side, you twist to the left with your neck, and then the opposite. And from here, let's add a bit of a spiciness. So we're gonna bring the knees back closer to the chest. We're gonna hook the big toes with middle index fingers, so your arms are positioned inside of your legs. And here, maybe it will take you a couple of attempts to rock forward. And when you rock forward, trying to catch the balance and maybe have a little bit of fun here. So your balance could be here. You may want to open up both of your legs, trying to avoid the balancing on the coccyx. For some of you, it could be here. You can bring your heels together, maybe keeping your chest open. For some of you, you may want to position your heels onto the floor. But if you do want to challenge yourself, keeping your chest open, keep that length in the back, and keep active your legs. So keep the legs active, keep pressing and kicking back with your legs. And from here, come out of the pose by bringing the heels towards the floor. So let's start to bring energy slightly down. So your heels are together, bring the heels away from the groin. You're creating that diamond shape. We're gonna inhale. And on the exhale, we're gonna fold forward. You perhaps can position your hands, interlacing the fingers, and hands can be positioned on the top of the toes, but you can also open up your arms. For some of you, you may want to use the brick and position that between your heels. Allow the body to melt forward. If you're finding that you're straining through the neck, maybe you want to position the other brick on the top of the lower brick, and maybe having here a few breaths. Bring your attention inwards, close the gaze, and just listen to the sensations in the body. Relax through the neck. Relax through the arms. And peel the forehead off the floor. Let's bring the bricks away and bring yourself onto the mat and bring your knees together. Bring your heels quite wide apart so your knees can fall down, and position your lower back on the floor. So we're trying to flatten that lumbar curve. Bringing your arms on the belly, both of your palms on the belly. And just take a few breaths, a few moments. Your gaze is closed. There's nothing else that needs to be done, and there is nowhere else that you need to be apart from this moment.
Noticing your sensations, noticing the feedback of the body. Where do you feel perhaps a manifestation of some energy, or just the language of the body? Tuning in into the breath. Noticing your inhalation and exhalations. And start moving your head from side to side, keeping your gaze closed. Bringing your head back into the center, bringing your knees to the chest, and massage both of the hips. So your rotation could be inwards and outwards. And when you're ready, bring both of your knees together, roll into any side of the body. With one of your hands, press into the mat, bring yourself into the cross-legged seated position. And just stay here for a few moments to reflect, to observe how the body feels after the practice. Where are you at with mind? What sort of emotions that you may experience in that moment? Having no judgment towards yourself, we're just allowing the awareness to come through, and notice that present moment. Very gently open your gaze, and this concludes our practice for today. You can bring both of the palms in front of the heart if you wish, and you can bow forward. Namaste.